Everybody, it's Romania Black, and we are on episode 3 of Witch Hat Atelier, and we have met a colorful cast of characters. I just watched the English dub for episode 2 off screen, so I could come and talk to you all about it. There are several comments from episodes 1 and 2 that I want to get to, so we're just going to dive right in, talk about some comments y'all have left me that I feel need to be brought up before we dive into episode 3, and then we're going to go from there. So I feel like every time I watch Witch Hat Atelier, I need to be wearing floral. That just feels appropriate. So I had a presentation today at work. I was like, this is so floral. It's perfect for witch hats. So there we go. But anyway, let's dive right in. Now, there were comments from Mech Poblite, or Mech Poblit, as well as Cozy Days and Nights from episode 1 that said, quote, "The fantasy renaissance, ushered in by the big 3, rejects traditional battle-heavy shonen or isekai tropes in favor of deep world-building, emotional storytelling, and artistic depth. The big 3 are Delicious in Dungeon, Frieren Beyond Journey's End, and Witch Hat Atelier," quoted by, they said, some Japanese anime reviewer or something. I am a little bit sad about that because I'm like, as an English teacher, I'm like, I want my sources cited. So I'm like, who said that? Who say their names? You know? So, but I having watched Delicious in Dungeon and Frieren Beyond Journey's End, they are on my channel. You can go check those reactions out if you want. Yeah, I could see that. I would definitely say in terms of fantasy world building and everything that quote just said, I wholeheartedly agree with that notion. So yes, nice. I feel privileged to be watching the third of the big 3, you know? I feel like we have a lot of big 3s in anime anymore. It just depends on the genre. Tasto3204 for episode 1 says, "I've seen a comparison made about the masked witch giving Coco the picture book. It's like if someone at the market gave a kid a, quote, basics to engineering guide, and after they've wired a couple of light bulbs and such, there's just a step-by-step guide to making a pipe bomb." I'm like, yep, that's kind of it, basically. Now, Darwin Award winner for episode 1 added this, and I thought it was important to note. They were like, they said they didn't think Coco had necessarily a photographic memory, but, and I hadn't thought about this, she's been looking at the same picture book every day for several years that she knows it by heart by now. And I was like, okay, that does make a lot more sense. I mean, I've seen series where the characters do have photographic memories, but if this was really the only book she had, I could see how she could memorize from it. They also said that the Japanese word translates witch as maho sukai, which the literal and boring translation is just magic user. Maho is magic, sukai is use. This is the same word in Frieren that's translated as mage, which you'll also see translated as wizard, sorcerer, and so on, depending on the story and the translator. I don't believe the word is gendered in Japanese, which is, that's good to note. I like that they're just magic users. It's just coincidental that all of the witches, aka magic users that Qifrey has are all women. So we just an absolute coincidence. Now, Pixie Dust and Fire for episode 2 said that I should pronounce Agot instead of Igot. It is Agot. I watched the English dub and it is Agot. Agot, I'm going to try to say it. I'm terrible at pronunciation. The worst. So Agot. And then Shimoyama says that in the Japanese sub, Qifrey does not have a dialect at all. Now, I read somewhere that somebody was saying that the dialect in the English dub is to make Coco feel even more out of her element, which I think is kind of clever. I like that. We'll talk about that in a hot second. Black Widow Queen for episode 2 says, "It's great to see and hear Qifrey's other pupils. Richa's voice, in particular, feels spot on for her character. A fun fact about their voice actresses. With the exception of Agot's voice actress, Hibiko Yamamura, they're all novices. This is actually the first role that Tetia's voice actress has ever listed on my anime list. What a debut! Yes. It's also fun since over 10 years ago, Hibiko Yamamura herself was in a similar position, being a rookie voice actress in a cast of otherwise experienced voice actresses, back when she was cast as Cure Twinkle in Star Twinkle Precure, a franchise known for casting novice voice actresses in major roles. I think it's neat that now it's her turn to get the chance to pass along the baton, so to speak." Yeah, that is really cool. I love that. So going to the dub, I will say the girls' different voices are cute. One seems like it's kind of has an Irish accent, maybe. It's very watered down. The other one seems like it's a little more like maybe Eastern European accent. Agat sounds fine. She has kind of a more British accent like Qifrey. The only thing about Agat is, and this is just my personal opinion, so you may totally disagree with me, and that is totally fine. Tetia and Richa sound like little girls. Agat sounds like a full-grown woman. Like Agat, she's like, oh, I couldn't help but notice you, Coco. How dare you say that you're a witch? There's just like, there are times when her voice like goes up in pitch a little bit where I'm like, okay, she sounds younger, but for the most part, the way that it's very deep and settles deep into the throat makes her seem like she's in her late 20s. Like just the way that she has it, it does not sound like a girl. Does not sound like a 14-year-old or a 12-year-old or a 10-year-old. However old they are supposed to be. But it could be that Agat is trying to make herself sound older because she wants to seem more mature and thus get more respect from Qifrey. I don't know. I don't know about that though because the character in the original Japanese sub doesn't have an accent, so thus is not doing the same with the character. I don't know, but she sounds very, very deep voiced for being a young lady, you know, and I've heard girls with deeper voices, so I can't say that that's not, you know, the case, but it just, I heard her voice and was like, oh, you sound 25 instead of 12. So, other than that, Qifrey's English dub voice is a dang eargasm. That man, the English dub actor playing Qifrey, when he gets his voice so soft and is doing this illicit little, this British ASMR in your ear, like it's just, I was like, oh, okay. I'm like, how dare you, sir? I will say the English dub, when he gets on the phone to report that Coco has settled in, it does not sound as sinister or menacing as the Japanese sub does. So that is to note. That is to note. At least it didn't come across that way. So we shall see. But anyway, thank you all so much for commenting. Thank you all so much for your support. The first episode on YouTube is like, it took off. And I understand why, because you all enjoy this series because it's so high quality, and I am as well. So thank you all so much. I greatly appreciate it. So anyway, we're not going to waste any more time. We are going to get started and see what episode 3 of Witch Hat Atelier has in store for us. And we're going to start that here in 3, 2, 1. And let's see what happens to dear Coco. Well, I was debating on whether or not to bring Whiteboard Coon out, and then the longer I thought about it, I was like, no, we're probably going to need him to break down stuff, so here we are. But yeah, so they usually say there's a rule of 3 for anime, that you have to watch, like, and by the 3rd episode, you'll decide if you really want to stick with the series or not. This one's the rule of 1, and then the rule of 2, and then the rule of 3. Like, they're all just... This series has been so good so far, and I would argue that this episode maybe doesn't have quite as much to discuss about it. We'll see. Sometimes I say that, and then it just ends up being just as long of a discussion, but there are definitely some interesting and mysterious elements afoot that I kind of want to break down with you all. So we did get to see the Great Hall. I am assuming that is where we have gone, where Qifrey has gone. The Great Hall, which, as we find out, has this entrance that looks like a little tiny gazebo. A little tiny gazebo. I like that there is this winding staircase. There are these winding stairs that nobody uses because why would you? They're just there for looks, and it leads to this underwater city, which is very cool, very intriguing indeed. So we're just going to go through this and look at our screenshots as we go through and just talk some things over. But we're going to start that here in 3, 2, 1. And I love the concept, love the design. It does the creepy iceberg effect where it like goes underwater and you see how big it gets from under there. It's so fun. And of course, it's, you know, in a very undesirable location, but yeah. So Qifrey goes there, just immediately drops down and lands. And we get the witch that has like the little, the moon hook that hooks him back like a comedian getting put off stage. It's like, what's the point of having a stairway when no one ever uses it? And at first you think this is just her lair, but no. Instead, she's just wants somebody meeting up with him. The problem child of the Great Hall. That title in itself is interesting. So things we find out. We find out that Qifrey is considered the problem child, which is interesting because why? He seems like he does pretty much what the Great Hall witches tell him to do. He seems like he's very by the book. So that does beg the question, did Qifrey... We got a theory, and I'm going to hold off until we see further. Okay, maybe it's just me, but this woman here, we're going to get her name again in just a hot second. She has a very... I like the idea that all of the witches, that they all have individual hats that kind of go with their lineage. So like all of Qifrey's students have the same type of hat that he has. I'm assuming that every disciple or every apprentice you've taken on that's part of your quote unquote witch family has the same hat as you. And that's how they identify, oh, you're one of Qifrey's witches or you're one of this, which we don't know who Qifrey's master is. So we may find that out. It's not this woman because her hat looks different. But the moment I saw her, all I could think of was the 1980s Thundercats. I thought of Wile E. Kit and Wile E. Cat, who are from the 1980s version of Thundercats. Maybe the mangaka was inspired. Maybe. I don't know. She just kind of seems like them, the way that her hair is. Her hair is very Thundercats. She has a pretty cool design. Like that. I'm going to be excited to hear her Alara, of seeing how she is in English. But Alara, a long time ago. So Qifrey says that he was a problem a long time ago. You sure? Sure, I'm sure Qifrey has not stewed upon any regrettable action that he's done a long time ago. I'm sure it's not haunting him into making decisions now with his apprentices that would bear any influence. Surely not. You've been stirring up trouble again. So that all but says, a long time ago, as Qifrey says, he caused something in the Great Hall that was a problem. And for whatever reason, which we're going to talk about, he does not want to stay in the Great Hall, but he's doing his own thing. So she says, I heard about your new apprentice. So we're just going to put up here, Qifrey, Qifrey is on his own at his atelier. He could have an atelier in the Great Hall, no doubt, but why be away? We're going to talk about that. It says, I heard about your new apprentice. And he's like, oh, already word travels fast. I like the has the big ribbon. It says she might have the connection you're looking for. To the brimmed caps. So, the brimmed caps, if you notice, the witches' hats all so far, and in the shop where they went to, I was wondering this. I was like, when we think of a witch's hat, this is not normally what I would think of. This is very medieval. Now, if you studied medieval literature, if you studied medieval history, anything, these hats do look like, even with the little ribbon across it, actually, with the little ribbon, it looks like a princess hat. Oh, the shipping that Romania can do. If Qifrey is the princess to the mysterious witch's prince, y'all know, it doesn't take much to make Romania ship, and I'm already like on the shipping bandwagon. But yeah, so all the hats kind of look like this. They all look like a very medieval princess royalties little cap, right? A brimmed cap is what I feel looks like a stereotypical witch's hat. A brim is like this, where a brim has this little extra, the big extra thing on there. And let's put an old buckle on there for sorts. This is a proper witch's hat. This is Halloween witch's hat. That's what I think of with a witch hat. Not the cap that looks very medieval princess, but a witch's hat. You could get all sorts of things. You could get like little ruffles on the ends of it. Yeah, you could have all sorts of fun with that. So, the brimmed caps, what are our guesses as to who they are? If Qifrey is supposedly he's looking for a connection to the brimmed caps. Now, that does change things a little bit. I know I've been shipping because the witch with the mask, I'm like, it just seems like the series is setting it up, right? It's just setting it up for us. It's just setting it up. But this does change the whole them kind of to the equation, where them could be a group. Could be a group of witches, right? We learned last episode that witches originally came into being because they were a small group that wanted to kind of hoard away all the magic to keep it safe and to allow it to be practiced under secure regulations and to prevent war and conflict from being the result of magic usage, right? So all these witches, of course, are totally fine with that because they get to be part of the inclusive group, right? My theory is that the brimmed caps are maybe a vigilante group. Maybe they are a vigilante group. Maybe they have decided that they don't want to play by the rules. Maybe they want to be able, maybe it's kind of like the pirate version of witches. They're a vigilante group and they want to use forbidden magic. They want to use that because they're like, why not? Why can't we? You know? And there's a number of reasons why someone would want to use forbidden magic. Maybe they, especially the whole healing angle, the idea that you can heal people with magic. I could see someone who's like, you know, had a family member that was dying and they're like, but I could use magic to save them. And they're like, nope, can't do that. And so they're like, so you're going to just let my family member die? And they're like, sure are. And I could see them getting mad at that and wanting to use it and thus joining the brim caps. Or perhaps you feel like the people using magic are starting to get corrupt and that anybody should have access to magic and it should be a free-for-all. Thus, you would join this group. So I think there are a number of reasons, especially in a very regulated and controlled environment that is exclusive, why someone who is not included would want to have access to that same opportunity. Especially if, what happens if like one sibling gets accepted and becomes a witch and the other one is denied? There's nothing separating them from being able to do it. It's just this one was chosen and this one was left out. There's a lot of scenarios that could happen that we've not even touched on that could explain why someone would want to be part of a vigilante group. So I think the brimmed caps are going to be our, I'm going to put in heavy air quotes, villains, because I think this story is a lot more complex than that. And I think we're going to find out that the people within the Great Hall are not as nice and innocent and holier than thou. Maybe they are holier than thou, but I don't think they're as, you know, picturesque, perfect utopian as they would like to maintain. Perhaps, but we'll see. We'll see. She says to the brimmed caps, and she's watching for his reaction. She's a shipper. She's a shipper. I can tell you right now, she's going to be shipping them. I wondered for a minute if she was like, if she maybe had a crush on Qifrey. Maybe she wanted Qifrey to come stay with her and like, be in, you know, the Great Hall with her, but maybe she's jealous. Maybe she will become jealous. We shall see. So she says, no one's used forbidden magic in 4 years. That's not very long. That's not very long. So it has been 4 years since forbidden magic, I'm going to put FM, was used. We can see how word traveled quickly because if it's not been used very long, any like use of it would be notable. I do think it's interesting it's only been 4 years. That's not a long amount of time. The way that Qifrey explained it last episode to Coco, it made it seem like, oh, well, the witches have had everything under control for centuries and everybody follows the rules and plays along and we all get along and shake hands and sing Kumbaya. And that is clearly not the case. I'm sure that the witches in the Great Hall will portray the brimmed caps as like terrorists, essentially. I'm sure that's how they will paint them. Whether or not they are or not. Although the first act that we've seen of someone that, although the witch that is at the end of this episode, that is the mysterious witch, does not have a brimmed cap on. So are they a brimmed cap or are they a third party that's not a brimmed cap or a witch? They're something else. They have a big long train that looks kind of like this, only it's in segments. It looks like, I'll draw another one. It looks like this. It has lots of chained segments, which is this chained segment a symbolic representation of them being chained to society? I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, interesting. Only 4 years. That's not a lot of time. I also like how she kind of leaves Qifrey in the dark. He's like in the shadows. As she's saying this, she's an important lead. And I like that he's like, it's not about that. Interesting. For a second, you can't see his eyes, and the glare has blocked out what you can see of him. So he says that it's not that he's using Coco to track the brimmed caps. And then you see his eye. He says she hasn't taken her test. She's not my official apprentice yet. And he says, no, it's too soon. Where the range is this time of year, where the DADAH range, where the tests take place, is they'll be at the highest elevation. Someone could die. And that's where we leave off. Okay, so it is also worth noting that the DADAH range, where the test takes place, seems like it's a universal test place. Like everyone takes their test at the DADAH range. So I was going to make a joke. That the mysterious witch that is surely not going to be shipped with Qifrey at all at any given point. I was going to make the joke that he like hangs out around Qifrey's place all the time, but that doesn't really apply because the range is open to all witches. They can all use a little teleport window to get to that location. So much for that theory, but I do find it intriguing that the witch, I'm just going to call them the witch, has been staked out at certain places waiting for Coco to show up. Thinking, okay, well, if Qifrey took Coco in, eventually she will show up here to take the test, and I just have to wait it out until she comes. And the seed has sprouted is them confirming that, yeah, she's came and take the test. I don't know how I feel about that phrasing. Obviously, the seed was giving Coco the magic book, training her with the book, and then her becoming a witch. Now, to what end the witch wants to use Coco for in terms of that, I don't know. It could have been anybody that they gave the book to. And there's still 2 more out there that could have been given to other people. So I don't know what the goal of that was, to just give them that, other than the hopes that Coco would use forbidden magic from the book and it would cause an uproar. Maybe that's it. I don't know. The seed has sprouted. It irks me a little bit because it feels, I don't know, like making Coco into not an object, but it kind of like others her in a way, and that's uncomfortable to me. But then again, we're not supposed to view this secular witch as being a good person right now, so we'll see where that goes, won't we? We'll see where that goes. Okay, so we're going to skip the intro. Oh my god, the brush buddy is so adorable. We're going to get to him in a little bit. But yeah, so Agat is interesting. Agat's whole thing, as we come to find out, Agat seemingly says that they don't like outsiders. They don't like outsiders, which Coco very much is. They seem to be jealous. Maybe not jealous is not the right word, but they seem to not understand Qifrey's decision to take her in. Like, they view being a witch as very sacred and as something you have to work very hard to earn, because they made the whole argument to Coco last episode that they trained to get this opportunity to be Qifrey's apprentice, and you just waltzed in and asserted yourself as an apprentice, and have you worked as hard as we have? No, you haven't. You don't deserve to be here. Things like that. So they don't understand Qifrey's decision. They also, they try to say that Coco isn't good enough, but that is a lie to me. I think that once Coco gets back with the herb and looks at Agat and is like, look, I did it, see? And Agat's just like, I feel like Agat might have a little bit of jealousy, and maybe Agat has always viewed themselves as kind of like the smartest in the room, and now that Coco's here and Coco has a natural knack for it, maybe Agat is kind of like both envious and also kind of humbled by it. I don't know. Agat has a lot of mysterious emotions, and we can sit here and contemplate what they are, but eventually Agat is going to have to talk to Coco, and eventually we know that those emotions are going to come out. It's just a matter of time. So like, whatever. You're doing alone, so it doesn't matter. And so they're like, but I just got here. So Agat says they passed the test when they were 10. Now, what the test was originally supposed to be, I think it was just going to the test range, getting the herb, and sure, you had to use like the compass to find it. You probably had to use like a spell to bop up there and grab it, but I'm sure they weren't as elevated And so it was probably a lot easier to do, right? And so the thing that got me was that Agat knew that they were elevated. Like she did. The thing that's crazy is that Agat put Coco in a lot of danger. If I were Qifrey, I would be having a conversation with Agat being like, you do realize you encouraged her to do this when she could have died. Like, how do you feel about that? Like, if I were Qifrey, I'd be having that conversation. And maybe he's going to next episode. I don't know. I don't know Agat's story of how she got there and why she's there, or why any of them are there. So you have to reach the summit of DADAH range on purely your own power and pick the diadem herb that grows there. A very cool looking little crown. Yep. The consent of the crown. The guidance orb points the way to your destination, and you get this vapor bubble for drinking water. And the thing is, until she got the shoes, Coco was going to be going in with a handicap. Like, how would she have gotten it without it? And that's when she asks for the shoes to wear there to help her, like, in case if she needs it. Can I have the shoes as my third item? And she's like, well, I guess. She's like, maybe. I love that Agat's like, don't even try to play. You clearly want the shoes. But she did actually give them to her. I think, to me, it shows that Agat is kind. Agat is a good person. She's just hiding behind this wall, and we as the audience do not know what the wall is yet. We don't know why she is the way that she is yet. We just know that she has a good heart. She's just very apprehensive and dismissive of Coco as an outsider, but we don't exactly know the reasons she believes this yet. So we'll see. She's like, if you fail, you can never be his apprentice, and you'll have to leave the Atelier. I wonder if... Here's the thing. I wondered if, when she said this, if Agat had failed the first time and then Qifrey let her pass again and he'd done that to like play a joke on her. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens with her next week in there. I joked at the beginning of the reaction saying that Coco looked like Red Riding Hood and would we see the big bad wolf? We do. We do see the big bad wolf. He's been hiding all along. He was hiding in plain sight all the time watching her. That's creepy. Trying to get his way back to Grandma's house, but she's like, how do I use this orb? And then we see the diadem like pointing her towards where she needs to go. And yep, they're all flying through the air. This was giving me such Castle in the Sky vibes, which I have reacted to on this channel. You can go check it out. Castle in the Sky vibes, for sure. Coco channeled her inner Patsu. If Patsu had magic, would have been a much shorter movie. But this was so cool, and they even look like little mini Earths. They were great. This is the range. She has the range. I want to talk about, like, I don't know if any of you have watched Hunter x Hunter. Again, I'm reacting to it on my channel. I don't know if any of you have watched Hunter x Hunter, but Coco was giving a lot of Gon vibes in this episode. Just, there's a specific training arc where the main character has to teach. It's just basic things. And here Coco's doing basic magic things. But it is a lot of self-sufficiency, a lot of innovation, a lot of practice. And Coco shows this perseverance that she has. It's so admirable. You just can't help but root for Coco. You want her to succeed. You want her to like get her goals accomplished. You want her to rescue her mom. Everything that she does has such an emotional weight to it. And it's so fun to watch her figure things out and practice them. Like her practicing the shoes. That's so cute. It's absolutely adorable. So adorable. But anyway, so she practices with her shoes for a while. Meanwhile, we go to this underwater city where there's like whales guarding it. It's very just larger than life, right? We have Coco practicing in a little muddy field to get her little magic boots to work. Meanwhile, there's an entire city underwater through magic being protected this way. Crazy. So yeah, within this little city, we go to where there are hats being made. They're like, here's the application, please process it. So clearly, Qifrey figured she was going to pass the test. So when she took it, she was going to pass it, and he went ahead and wanted to get the hats made. Again, I appreciate that you see old Atelier, Alara, I want to call her Elena, Alara in the wings, like kind of waiting in the shadows. And then what's interesting is some of these look like crowns that are under glass. Some of them have flowers. Interesting. But yeah, and you can tell the hat makers there, they both have the same kind of hats. So they clearly are, you can see they're associated. And they're like thought tree, number 12. Okay. If you lived in the Great Hall, you wouldn't have to travel so far for every little thing. And you could bring your apprentices too. She really wants him to go and live in the Great Hall, whether she has a crush on him or not. But he's like, she said, the Great Hall is the witch's stronghold. It has everything we need. And he's like, which is why I come here when I need things. I don't blame him. See, here's the thing. I don't blame Qifrey for 2 reasons. One, if you've been labeled as the problem child, then that probably means you're going to be micromanaged every little step of the way because they feel like they need to. And if I were Qifrey, I wouldn't want to be under somebody's microscope the entire time. It's kind of one of those out of sight, out of mind things. And it would restrict the freedom that he has with his apprentices to do magic the way that he wants to. So in that regard, the problem child of the Great Hall, I think what makes Qifrey the problem child is that he kind of sees through the system. He sees it for its benefits, but he also is very aware of its flaws. And so he tries to play in the system while still having some autonomy to himself. And the other reason is the idea that every magic user, that everyone that can use magic is under one location, under one roof in a very easy to dispose of location. I wouldn't want to be there. No, it's like we've gathered all of our important chess pieces in this one box. It's a secure, strong box, but it is still nigh indestructible. It's not indestructible. So even though the city is probably protected by magic, even though it's at the bottom of a lake, it still is in a position where there could be damage done. And if you put all your witches under one location, it seems like you're putting all your eggs in one basket, you know? I don't know. I don't blame Qifrey for not wanting to stay there. I don't blame him at all. And I don't know if she doesn't trust him or if she's kind of mad that he doesn't want to stay. She clearly is like, why don't you just stay here? Like, poor girl. And she's like, well, sir, is this for that outsider? It was for the outsider, in fact. And that's when she said, your hatred of the Great Hall runs deep. And maybe he does hate them. And he's like, and they're like, oh, Thoughtry, I'm sorry. Okay, so Thoughtry, the apprentice there, knew about Coco as well. And she's like, keep an eye on those apprentices of yours. You might never know what children that age might be up to without adults around. That is also something else that is interesting because the masked witch gave Coco the hat when she was a little kid. So there is a part of me that I wonder if the brimmed caps, if they take in kids to teach them magic, or if they're just like, here, is it like, I think of the 1991 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. Is it like the Foot Clan, where the Foot Clan are like giving the kids everything that they want, even if it's like involving stealing to get it or fighting people to get it? It could be. It could be. But yeah, meanwhile, Coco is the most innocent character in the world as she's teaching herself magic to try and get up to the herb. And then she gets a hold of that vine, and while she's holding on to it, the most adorable little creature. I think that Furbies are creepy and I don't like them, but this little ferret-looking dust bunny, I am 1,000 times here for him. I would do a lot for him. Because he's so freaking cute. He's cuter than a ferret, cuter than a Furby. He's a little brush buddy. He's adorable. The way they animate him is precious. He's like if a cat was magical. Not that cats aren't magical, but he's just, so cute. So freaking cute. I love him already. I do wonder with the Masked Witch, because right, so far we've met the 2 episodes we've seen the Masked Witch. We've had the butterfly, aka moth, and we've also had this brush buddy. I'm like, is the masked witch, does he or she, we don't have confirmation yet, do they have lots of familiars that are animals? Do they know witches that have turned themselves into, is the brush buddy a human that's transformed themselves into such things? We don't know. Is the masked witch using animals as familiars to go spy for him? And the brush buddy is a spy for the witch? I don't know. Don't know. Maybe it's not. Maybe the brush buddy is just a cute little innocent creature that she stumbled across. Also, let me tell you, as a farm girl that has grown up on a farm and wore many a rubber boots, there is nothing quite as disgusting or as unsettling as walking around with a muddy shoe. With a shoe full of mud. There have been many times wading through mud to help cows that I have gotten mud in my shoes and your feet are just damp all day. Nope, those are not fun times. But again, the world building in this series is so smart because when she goes to clean the shoe, she wipes off the spell and she can't use the shoes anymore. And it's like, oh, it's genius. Sucks to be her, but it's genius for the show to think that up. I'm like, that's so clever. Love that. So she's like, what am I going to do without the casting seal? Also, I love that the little brush buddy is like over the compass the whole time, like looking at her like, what do we do? She's like, I could just draw it back on. But then her drawing utensils are all no good. So what is she going to do as it's the sun starting to set? Meanwhile, I just like that Agathe is stress putting wood into the fire. Agathe is so interesting because I feel like she wants Coco to pass, but then at the same time she doesn't. So she wants to be Coco's friend, but at the same time there's something holding her back from doing so. So Agathe, we don't know a lot about her backstory or her past. We don't know a lot about any of their pasts. So there's clearly something there that is making Agathe way more apprehensive about Coco than Tetia and Richa. Because Richa and Tetia they treat her very normally, but Agathe has like a chip on her shoulder when it comes to Coco for some reason. She's like, most people take the test before coming here, right? And she's like, well, yeah, but most people are also like, as Qifrey says, have been training since they were very young in magic and know all the things ahead of time. If she can't do something that simple, she shouldn't be an apprentice. I hate people who can't do what I can. I gain no benefit from being around them. That feels like projecting. That what she said there about people who are of no use. That feels like something someone's told her. I feel like she's been told that by an adult. And that has stuck with her. And now she is passing that traumatic viewpoint onto Coco and her perception of her. Because it just doesn't seem like something Agathe would normally say. And even Tetia is like, this doesn't sound like you. She'll fail and come back soon enough. And she knew it was that high. She's like, there's no way she can get it. I don't want someone like that in our world. And maybe there's another side to it too. Maybe she's projecting what someone has told her and she felt awful about, and like hate begets hate. Maybe she also doesn't want Coco to get hurt, and she feels that if Coco's not strong enough to do this, then she won't be strong enough to, maybe she likes Coco and she's afraid Coco's going to get hurt in this world, and so she wants her to just go away. Maybe that's it as well. And then when Coco passed the test, she's like, well, crap, she's going to stay and get hurt. My plan didn't work. So, I don't know. Are Coco and Agathe going to be a parallel of Qifrey and the Masked Witch? I don't know. But it seems like that'd be very smart if they were. I could see it, right? I could see it. But we don't know enough about the Masked Witch to really know if that's going to be the case or not. I don't know. But Agathe is interesting. I want to know where Agathe's from. I want to know their backstory. Meanwhile, poor Tetia is sad. And for a second, Richa sees Tetia so sad and she's like... And for a second you think that Richa is going to be like, there, or it's okay. And then she just gets up and goes and gets more food. Freaking love her. I love Richa. Richa is she's a real one. She's just like, yeah, I'm going to get seconds now. She's like, it'll be fine. Qifrey will be back and everything will be okay. I think that, here's the thing. I don't think that Agathe misjudged how persistent and determined Coco is. I don't think that she misjudged that. I think she was hoping that Coco would give up so that she wouldn't be thrust further into this dangerous world. That's not what happened, though. That is not what happened. Instead, Coco just tried harder, and she realized, now, this part showed how tempting it was. Because she's like, oh, I can't use this tool. I can't use this item. I could just draw the seal on my foot, and then I could just fly it myself. But you can't draw spells on your body. You're not supposed to. So she realizes, I think in that moment, though, I mean, Coco's innocent enough that she didn't do it, but the temptation was very real and very there. So we'll see where that takes her, but it was a bit dangerous. Dangerous indeed. She's like, nope, can't draw it on my body, so what am I going to do? What kind of magic should I use at a time like this? And I like that as she's thinking, like, maybe Agathe was right. And instead, we see this little image. I'm curious, though. So she thinks back to when she was a child. Now, again, this is, I'm presuming, how Coco sees them all. Like, she sees, like, Tetia and Richa look exactly the same. But we see Agathe here with this really long hair. I wonder what caused Agathe to cut the hair, if that is a true representation. Anyone can draw a spell, but that doesn't mean that they'll be good at it. You have to be special, a special kind of person to be a witch after all. But then she thinks about it. They've all been drawing spells since they were children, though. And she thinks it's not something I could ever do. And then she sees the dream and the memory of when her mom taught her to draw the lines to cut the fabric. And I love this. This series has a big obsession with hands. And I don't know if you've ever, Lindsay Ellis does a really good video about, she did a series for PBS called It's Lit, and I use it a lot in my English classes as kind of supplementary material, but she had one introduction in one of her videos that talked about hands, and I hadn't thought about it until I watched it, but it's very true. In a lot of literature, hands are very symbolic, and you can go find the It's Lit. It's about narrative introductions. You can go look it up. It's Lindsay Ellis, PBS, It's Lit. I'm sure it's still on the internet. But it's all about literature, narrations, and introductions. Like, how do you start out your story? And one of the symbolic things she talks about are hands, because you just see them and you're like, oh, these are the things that are really hard to draw. The animators like to flex, that they can draw. But hands have a lot of cultural, socioeconomic significance. Hands are symbolic of your working class. So if you have very smooth hands that have hardly any wrinkles or calluses, it's a sign that you don't do a lot of manual labor. I have a lot of calluses on my hands, and I have knots that have developed because I've worked with cows and I've worked on a farm. And back, if you read stories like Oliver Twist, hands are important. Like, dirty hands represent symbolically someone's status or someone's class or someone's, it may be symbolic of if they are clean spiritually or if they are dirty or not. So hands are very significant. And I feel like it's intentional that this series focuses on them so heavily as well, because they are drawing and using tools to create the magic themselves. But what I loved about this moment is that Coco is doubting herself. She is like, I have not had as much experience as Agathe and the others. I have not been able to practice as much as them. I don't know this world as well. I'm an outsider. There's no way that I will ever match up to them. And this whole montage with her as a little kid is so adorable. What this is so great for is that it proves what matters is that I apply what I am good at, what makes me unique, and that is how I access magic. And she's like, I already was doing that with the skills my mother taught me, because when I did it, that's when Qifrey was like, this is true. This is real magic. She's like, I already have the skills I need to make this work. I just have to apply them in a way that fits this world. And that's next level stuff. For like a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old to do, that is for her to realize she has her own magic, that's stuff that a lot of adults don't realize. So it's like, girl is like leaps and bounds ahead, right? And she decides to take all of these stones, dip them in the ink, I'm presuming, dip them in the ink, make them into, yep, she took the cloth that had the ink on it, took it around the stone, got it into the water, and then used it and drew on the cloak to make it a sail that then became like a kite. Like, girl, genius, ingenious. Like, that is so innovative. Like, what little kid thinks to do that? And honestly, I think a lot of little kids could figure it out. I hate the idea that we, in some cultures, in some places, people do not give kids not only enough credit, but they're not letting kids be innovative. Like, kids can find ways to finagle things and make them work in ways that a lot of adults have forgotten is possible. She's like, I'll swap it for a tool I'm used to. My fingers began to dance of their own accord. I also love the way that the time, the stars, and everything rotating shows the time frame and all that. But she creates this sail. Ah, I love it. And so we have the water and everything, and or that's water, and then the air, it's like pushing downward to let them go up. She makes basically her own parasail. It's not a broom necessarily, but her own glider. She makes a glider to get through the air. Just, I freaking loved it. So innovative. Also, she's like, oh, you want to come too, little buddy? Yeah. I wonder if the little buddy is a familiar of the Masked Witch. I wonder. I wouldn't be surprised if the Masked Witch is part of the Brimmed Caps. I wouldn't be surprised because, like, controlling animals and stuff, I assume might be because they're living creatures, not tools. I'm sure that's forbidden, right? Or turning people into animals, whatever. Interesting. Everything about this sequence, the action, just when you think that the episode isn't going to have a lot of action in it, it has this like scene where she nearly crashes into the side of one of the bowls on the bulbs on the DADAH range, and it's like, when she almost crashed into that one side, I really thought she was going to splat and fall down. And when she's like, this is like a dream, girl. I freaking love Coco. She is amazing. And then her realizing helping my mom literally made me learn magic. And she puts it all together. The show is so freaking good. So yeah, she keeps working at it, keeps trying to get the dang plant, and then she convinces herself, I'm gonna do it, and darn it, she does. Her mom helps inspire her and prove to her that you've got these hands, you can do anything with these hands. And when she looks back down it, she's like, I am not gonna give up. And I freaking love Coco. She's like, I am not. She's like, wait for me, Mom. I'll take responsibility for what I've done. In that way, I feel like she is a lot like Qifrey. I feel like her and Qifrey are very similar. Qifrey has done something that has caused him to be labeled the problem child of the Great Hall. And Qifrey seems like he's trying to atone for what he's done by doing this like self-exile out into the Atelier that's outside the Great Hall. And Alara is like, you can come back anytime, you know. And he's like, no. For all these other reasons. He's like, I'm good. But I feel like he's trying to take responsibility and atone. And now I feel that's why he kind of maybe has a soft spot for Coco, because he sees a lot of himself within her. And so he's like, what are you talking about? She went by herself. He's like, that's too dangerous. And then there she is. And of course, there's a got watching from the side. She hasn't been around. He's like, if anything were to happen to Coco, she wouldn't be the only loss suffered. I feel like there's a lot loaded in that statement. One, she wouldn't be the only loss because she could die. But two, the mom would die. Maybe only the person that casts the spell can undo it, so the mom could die. 3, if she dies and everybody finds out about it, then that's going to call Qifrey and his apprentices into question, being like, oh, this girl died under your watch. Are the other apprentices safe under you? So, yeah, there's a lot at stake. You can't just have her, going off and getting killed. And then she shows up with the flower. Again, absolutely beautifully animated. Orgasm, the whole thing, the whole 9 yards. And of course, Tetia is really excited that she's okay. And then Coco gives her, and it's like, I got consent of the crown. I think the worst part is for Agat that Coco wasn't mad. She wasn't angry. She wasn't like, oh, you tricked me into going to this range and nearly killing myself knowing that it would be super dangerous. She's not mad at all. She's not resentful. She has no anger or bitterness towards Agat whatsoever. She's just like, here, I did it. Now I can be apprentices with you all. And I think that makes Agat feel even worse because she had all of this bitterness in her heart. And then Coco is so pure that none of it's matched. And so she's like, clearly is not happy with herself for it. This is the proof, right? Again, I definitely feel like we know nothing about the masked witch. We know nothing about the masked witch, but hear me out. If we were doing, because some stories like to do adult couple parallels to child couple parallels. It's a classic storytelling technique. Seen it as an English teacher, tried and true. It would be interesting if Coco is connected to Qifrey, that they both have done something that has caused them to be looked at with a more critical eye, and they're trying to atone and take responsibility for their actions, then that would connect these two characters together. And Agat seems to view Coco as very naive and very innocent and, unaware of how dangerous the world is, or how, in Agat's mind, the witching world seems to be, a much more serious place than Coco's giving it credit for, and saying like, you've used forbidden magic. Aren't you worried about what the consequences of your actions are? And Coco's taking accountability, but to Agat, it's not the response Agat was expecting. I wonder if the masked witch is kind of thinking the same thing towards Qifrey, except saying, Qifrey, the system you're living under is easily corruptible. Now, whether the Great Hall is corrupt or not, we don't know. It could be a perfect utopia. When does that happen in a story, though, right? Where would the conflict be? But I just have a feeling that the masked witch would tell Qifrey, you're in a system it's a bubble that's eventually going to burst, right? So I'm seeing little connections again, but I am assuming a lot, because we don't know the masked witch at all. So, I don't know. And so Qifrey says, you should not have done this. You did not have it was extremely dangerous to cast spells without the proper preparation and fundamental knowledge. I thought you'd learned that already. And she's like, well, yes. Are you going to talk to a god about convincing me to go? He's like, you could have easily died. Never do anything like that again. Yeah, she's going to, probably. Probably. And besides, you needn't put yourself in danger to prove anything. You're already my apprentice. Mm-hmm. And there's the hat. To go along with the robes, right? To go along with it. I also love that the little brush buddy is holding the little herb. That's so cute. I do think another connection, too, is that when Agat was telling Coco about all of the spells and everything, at first Agat was very kind of rejecting of Coco, but towards the end of episode 2, they were like, yeah, I'll help you. I'll make sure you learn and everything. Again, interesting dynamic. We'll see what happens with the masked witch when we uncover them. But yeah, I love this sequence here. The care that is, like, the care of them animating every little button going through the hole is so cute, to show every little moment, like tightening the sleeves and pulling the hood over and doing that and pulling the hair out. Like, this is like Studio Ghibli levels of animating everything and pulling the buttons through. Like, that's super cute. And the little blue and white cap. Cute. Number 12, they said. So I wonder if there are at least 12 different witch families. Maybe because they said there were 12. The pointed cap is watching your magic. Is it watching your magic? Does it have a surveillance feature? I don't know. Yep, take good care of it. Apparently, until you get to Qifrey's level, do you get the ribbon, the fancy ribbon. Uh-huh. And she's like, sure. Yep. So maybe the apprentices all have the same color and hat style and everything. Maybe they'd get gray when they Like, nobody's questioning the brush buddy. They're all just like, oh, cool, you found a friend. Richa has the best suggestion. Like, you've been out in the mud and you smell like a forest. Take a bath. Interesting. So yeah, Qifrey's getting all of that gathered up. And then who do we see at the very end? I don't know. I know the voices are supposed to sound androgynous, but I think it's just my mind. My mind has decided that this character is presenting as a male, and so that's what I'm assuming the voice sounds like. Although, I love all the black feathers. Hear me out! Qifrey is very owl-coated. Can the masked witch be crow-coated? Can it be like a raven, an owl and a raven? Can we have that? Also, this hat has a little brim, but not very much. I do like the mask with the eye and the little beard, the tassel, the veil. Interesting. Interesting. I'm so curious, y'all. So curious. All these theories, and we just gotta wait to find out what ends up happening, so... Anyway, this episode was so cute. I also appreciate that they didn't give us all of the reveals with the Great Hall Witches. They didn't just say, like, here's all your questions answered, of course. We just met one. We met Alara and got a little bit of insight from her. Got a little bit of a name drop on our potential antagonistic group. We'll see where that goes. But yeah, which, look, two things can be true at once. The brimmed caps could be a very dangerous group of witches that are, you know, using forbidden magic and causing lots of problems, although they haven't acted in 4 years, apparently, that anyone knows of. So there is a very good chance that they could be just as cruel and vile as we think, as they are led up to be. But two things can be true at once. The Great Hall Witches, I don't know, anytime I see a giant body of authoritative power that's been keeping things from the masses, there's the possibility of corruption so easily within grasp. I wouldn't be surprised if some of these holier-than-thou witches have been using forbidden magic and not telling anybody. And Qifrey didn't even know about it, so... But I could be wrong. They could be wonderful. They could be they could be patron saints. They could be patron saints. But we'll see. We'll see. So I'm super excited for episode 4, y'all. I hope you all are as well. But in any case, I hope you all enjoyed this video. Please give a comment down below, like and subscribe to the channel. Y'all know that jazz. And I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and I'll be back very soon with the next episode of Witch Hat Atelier. And I'll see you then. Bye.